Hello, my name is Brian Block, and today we will be spending a few moments around conflict management and resolution. Today's objectives of the presentation are to understand conflict resolution, how to manage conflict, and saving difficult conversations in intense moments. We're going to start today by considering a few questions around conflict. Conflict will usually take care of itself if given enough time. Yes, no, maybe. I'd say the answer to that is probably no. Most conflicts will usually take care of themselves no matter how much time they are given. It's best to address the conflict as it occurs with your team. They don't tend to just lie under the surface and accumulate and fester. It gets worse and will impact the team's performance at some point. Confronting someone is almost always unpleasant. Well, some people say yes. It's unpleasant. Others say no, it doesn't have to be. The truth is probably both. But to say it's almost always unpleasant might be a stretch of confronting someone in a potentially conflictual situation. It doesn't have to be unpleasant. It depends on how you view conflict, which is something that we're going to talk more about in a few minutes. An effective team leader will prevent conflict from occurring within the team. Probably not. Conflict is going to occur within a team. The issue is not the conflict. The issue is, how does the team manage the conflict? Conflict itself is inevitable. It's going to happen. It's byproduct of human interaction. We're simply going to conflict with each other. You can't avoid it, but you can manage it. And that's what an effective team leader will do. If there is conflict in the team, you're probably dealing with team members who aren't committed to the team. I'd say no. If there's conflict in the team, it's very well because team members are committed to the team. They care about the team and they want the team to be successful. They simply have the differences in opinions or perspective, even goals regarding the team. So again, conflict within a team is not necessarily a bad thing. It's how you deal with it. People get angry or frustrated, and that's why always harmful to working relationships within a team. It doesn't have to be. Anger is a valid human emotion, just as joy and happiness. We wouldn't argue that joy and happiness are harmful to working relationships within a team, so we shouldn't argue that anger or frustration are harmful. Also, you should expect people to experience these kinds of emotions again. The question is, how do you handle the emotions when they occur? So let's jump in. That you cannot prevent conflict from occurring. In teams, you should deal with the conflict as the conflict occurs. It can be positive, and it means people care. Given that, however, we often still dread conflict, and there are a number of reasons for that. Most people are simply uncomfortable in conflictual situations. Someone's going to get their feelings hurt. They're going to engage in an argument they might lose. They don't like to argue, and others won't like us if we disagree with them. There are a lot of reasons why people dread conflict. But we need to understand that conflict can be a positive. It opens issues for discussion. It promotes creativity and innovation in new ideas. It fosters and understands and builds cohesiveness that research clearly shows that high-performing teams experience greater levels of conflict within the team than lower-performing teams do. It's not the conflict that occurs, it's how well the team manages the conflict. I think it's very important to reflect a little bit on your personal view of conflict. It's going to be very difficult to use conflict effectively or to successfully manage conflict if you dread conflict. We often view conflict as a disruption to a relationship. It's a fight against someone who is working against you. We often define the relationships in terms of conflict. I just don't want to work with that person. And we see it as a battle between right and wrong. Now, if you view conflict this way, again, it's going to be very difficult to successfully manage conflict. I'd like you to consider an alternative view of conflict. Conflict is simply going to happen. because of the diversity in a team. One of the biggest obstacles to team development is people. People are so diverse, we're going to have conflict. Because of the diversity, you need to look at the potential way for greater learning, greater creativity, better problem solving. Use the diversity that's in the team and deal with the conflict that comes from this in a positive manner. Look for common interests. Look for common goals. Don't look for differences. Don't focus on those differences. Remember that conflict is a part of a healthy relationship. It's not a battle between right and wrong. It's simply a question of differences in opinions or preferences, perspectives, goals, and we need to recognize those differences for what they are, and they simply use them in a positive way. Research clearly shows there are different ways that people communicate with one another. You can be a passive communicator. A passive communicator doesn't do a very good job of sharing their thoughts and feelings. The other person has a difficult time understanding what the individual wants or needs. The aggressive communicator is just the opposite. The aggressive communicator almost hits you over the head with their thoughts and their needs, their feelings. They do very little consider your thoughts or your needs, what you want to strive for. Is an assertive communication. Assertive communication is an appropriate expression of your thoughts and feelings to the person, and you encourage the other person to share their thoughts and feelings as well. You respect the differences, and you might find assertive communication can be a very powerful tool in successfully managing conflict. I'd like you to consider the assertive statement. I'd like you to consider the assertive statement as a tool to help manage potential conflict, often in a way of successfully working your way through a conflict. Misunderstanding the assertive statement can be used to help reduce the emotion and decrease the potential for misunderstanding and defensiveness in a conflictual situation. There are 3 parts to an assertive statement. When, I feel, I'd like. The first part, when, is simply an objective description of the behavior or the situation without any emotion. It allows you to stay focused on the problem and not the person that you're expressing. So as an example, when the statement might be, when you flip the TV channel, you're watching a show I'm interested in. So the situation here is 2 people sitting on the couch in the living room watching TV, and one person has a remote and they tend to flip channels, and it's annoying to the other individual. The I feel part of the statement comes next. Here you describe what your feelings are when that particular behavior occurs. I feel irritated and annoyed, like my preferences don't count. And the final part of the statement is I'd like. It's what you want to happen, how to resolve the situation. It can be a specific request or a simple invitation to have more discussion so you can reach an argument in our example. I'd like to be a part of the statement, and I'd like part of the statement would mean a lot if we could just ask. Would just ask if it's okay to switch channels rather than just doing it. Sorry. So if you put all the parts of this together, you get an assertive statement. When you flip the TV channel while we're watching a show I'm interested in, I feel irritated and annoyed, like my preferences don't count, and it would mean a lot to me if you would just ask if it's okay to switch the channels rather than just doing it. Now, granted, this is kind of an artificial situation. You might not go to the trouble of developing an assertive statement. They're generally most effective situations in high emotions, and again, designed to reduce the emotion to focus on the problem, so that you don't attack people and people don't feel attacked when having conversations. Otherwise, people get defensive, and if they get defensive, then you're going to get defensive, and then people become withdrawn, and they no longer want to work with you, and they'll attack you back. Then the exchange simply deteriorates, and one person attacking the other person back doesn't really help things move forward in that exchange. When you use the assertive statement, don't blame others. Don't use explosive language. Don't attack someone's personality. You don't evaluate or judge. You're just trying to communicate to the person that is there. Is a behavior. A behavior is a situation that you're having a trouble with, and you want to be as objective as you can in describing the situation or describing the behavior. You're not saying they're a bad person. You're not attacking them. You're simply saying when the behavior occurs, this is how I feel. But this is my reaction to it. If for the sake of our relationship, I'd like our help in changing this behavior or changing the situation. It can be very effective, and I hope that you'll one day give it a try. Now, I know in this recording we don't have an opportunity for questions, but I'd love for you to send me questions in ways that I can help address the situations that you may be facing. Thank you for your time, and we'll talk to you soon.